We've got Daliana Liu, who's going to talk to us about the 3 things that make a data analyst great. Daliana is a senior data scientist at Amazon with over 7 years of industry experience. She shares data science and career tips on LinkedIn and has over 70,000 followers. If you're not already following her, I highly recommend that you do. She interviews data scientists and AI researchers on the Data Scientist Show to talk about their career journey. I'm going to go ahead and bring Daliana up on our virtual stage here. Hello, hello. Welcome to the Dedicated Expo.
Hi, Kate. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. Happy to have you here. I'm gonna give you the stage and let you take it away. I'll be back in 10 minutes with some questions.
Cool. Hello, everyone. I'm Daliana. So today I will talk about 3 things that make a data scientist or a data analyst great. So a lot of times when someone asks us to give them some data analysis, we're very eager to get into the data and do the analysis. And sometimes we find that what we present when we present to the stakeholder is not what they are looking for. So my first tip is always take a step back, ask why they are looking for this analysis. I'll give you an example. If your manager asks you to give them the sales, the overall company sales from last year, and your natural response probably is, okay, I'll get the last year's of total sales for you. But if you ask them, hey, what are you going to use with this number? They might ask, oh, I want to use last year's sales to predict next year's, to prepare how many people I want to hire to plan for next year. Then you know, oh, I can get last year's sales, but I have the monthly data. I can actually run a prediction model to help you forecast the next year's sales. Wouldn't that be better for the business? And also now you know your manager, your CEO want to plan for next year. So then you realize, oh, actually in the database, we also have the data for cost. Do you want to understand what is the cost for the business? Maybe you want to also suggest to look at the return of investment, the ROI. So there are a lot of things that you can do to help the business make a better decision, because your manager doesn't always know the context of the data. When it asks for something, sometimes that might not be the best question to solve their problem. And as a data scientist or data analyst, our job is not just to provide a solution, it's to provide the right solution for the business to thrive. So the first one is always, instead of just say yes to analysis, always ask why and think like a business owner. And also, before you dive into the data, do the analysis, make sure you understand the data, meaning what is the limitation of the data. So sometimes the columns, the features, they have names that seems very obvious, but maybe the people who give those names also have their assumptions. What do the sales or revenue mean? Do they mean the revenues are realized, actual revenue, people already paid you? Or is the revenue that what you're supposed to have, but maybe people haven't transferred the money to the company yet? There are a lot of nuances. I'll give you one example. When I work in my first team in Amazon, we want to measure what is the daily sale based on a certain campaign. So if you want to look at the daily number, there's a small nuance that if someone see the campaign right before midnight and then make a purchase after midnight, does it count as a sale for yesterday or for today, right? And there's no wrong answer to this, but there's always some assumptions around the data you're going to make. So if you think about those are not about building complicated models. It's about defining your solution, defining the metric. And you need to be very careful about what assumption you make, and remember to document assumptions, because at the end of the day, people might ask you, okay, how did you arrive at this number? So first thing is ask for the purpose of your analysis. understand the bigger picture and think as a business owner to see how you can contribute to this analysis. And second one is understand the data and understand assumptions you make before you do the analysis. And the second tip is always sync up with your manager or stakeholder during the analysis. You might think, okay, I already communicated a lot during the first step, right? Ask why. Why do I have to always sync up? The thing is, business goals changes. Maybe they want something else during the course of your analysis. And it's very important to do stakeholder alignment throughout your entire process. You might have those experiences that you provided some analysis. They're like, oh, we actually changed. We want to look at something else, right? So it's important for you to, during your weekly sync up with your manager, to let them know what you're working on and whether this is still relevant for them. Especially when you present your results, a lot of mistakes I made early in my career is I want to finish everything and then present to my manager. And then realize what I think about the problem is different about what they think about a problem. So your manager doesn't really care whether your plots are beautiful or your table is pretty. Even if your results is half-baked, don't be afraid to show your manager and get their feedback. So adopt this type of thinking that doesn't matter whether you're building a dashboard or model, you're essentially building a product using data for someone to use, right? So you need to approach the solution like a product manager to get feedback and then constantly adjust your solution. So sometimes when you present your finding, when you're 100% confident, sometimes it's too late. Don't be afraid to show your results early, be flexible, take feedback, and adjust your analysis. Another thing is when we work on analysis, sometimes we run into issues about accessing data, or when we look at the data, we realize, oh, this data cannot answer the question. It's okay to communicate your challenges with your manager and ask for help. So it doesn't really matter whether you solve this problem by yourself or with the help of another data scientist or data engineer. It doesn't mean you're incompetent. So voicing the challenges you face also make your manager trust you more. So the earlier you are able to ask for help, get resource, the faster you're going to solve the problem, right? So knowing when to ask for help and who are you going to collaborate with is also very important during the process. And the third tip is present the results as you are a business owner. So what does this mean? Now you have asked the right questions, you have arrived at your analysis, now you're going to present the results to your manager. And sometimes it's through a presentation, sometimes it's through an email. Let's start with email first. I see a lot of great data science, brilliant data science send very long emails. They just dumping all the charts and tables in email. And just imagine how do the recipient of email feel when you look at those reports. Imagine your manager probably see 100 emails a day. And then when they see your long email, it's very hard for them to understand what you're trying to communicate. So there's a saying that it's easy to write a long email, but it takes a long time to write a shorter email. So if you put yourself in your manager's shoe, make sure you have a short narrative about your analysis in the beginning of the email. Summarize what you have found. Okay, this is the data we're using. This is the result. This is what I recommend. Always have a so what section. So it doesn't help your managers make decision if you just present a number, right? So I think next year we should make certain decisions based on the sales we forecasted or based on some numbers. Have a recommendation. it's okay that your manager doesn't take a recommendation, but they are interested in your perspective. And then you can say, okay, I arrived this conclusion based on this chart, this table. And then you can say, okay, look at the first table below. What does it say? If you are using some jargons, make sure you explain them. For example, even if sales, hey, and then you can add a note. Here's how I define monthly sales, daily sales. I use certain table. How many data points I use, and those are the charts. What do they look like? What do they mean? So always have your summary, the short summary in the beginning of your email, and then show your tables later. Don't dive into the details too fast. So that's for the email. Have empathy for the people who are reading your email. And the second one is, okay, now if you're not writing an email, you're giving a presentation, right? Same thing. Talk about your results first. A lot of us want to present from, okay, based on the order of how you approach analysis. Hey, this is what I do first, and then second arrive this results. No, your stakeholders don't care about the order of how you do analysis. They want to see the results and they want to know why, and they care about why, what type of decision they should make based on your results. So show your results first and then explain your approach. And also, it's important to explain the caveats. And it's okay that your model analysis is perfect. And know that there is never a perfect or a model or analysis. There's something, but as long as it meets the business goal, then it's good enough. So having this discussion is also important to earn trust from your manager. And I wouldn't trust if someone tells me my model, my analysis is perfect. And when you do the presentation, it's also important to know that who's going to be your audience. Is your audience technical? If you're technical, you can include those details. If your audience is not technical, then you might need to use some analogies, or using some simple words to explain those complex statistical solutions. So when you present your results, it's very important to have empathy for your the email recipients, for whoever listened to your presentation. Also, remember to present the most interesting thing first and leave out the detail. Don't jump into the details, and leave room for discussion, and be honest about the caveats of your solution. So here are my 3 tips that will help you become a better data analyst. So that's review them. The first one is take a step back, think like a business owner. The second one is to sync up with your stakeholder, align with goals, ask for help when you need them. And third one is when you present, structure your presentation or email from the perspective of the recipient. And that would be it. Do you have it? Happy to answer any questions.
Awesome, Daliana, thank you so much for this amazing presentation. You've shared so many great tips, and I really thank you for that. We have a lot of questions that are coming at you right now. We're going to try to take at least 2 of them. So let's go ahead and start with a question from Gordon. He says, many people claim to be data analysts, but they're not. So a telltale for him is when they ask for any requirements. Any other tips that you have on, how do we identify if an analyst is good or great?
Yeah, thanks, Gordon, for asking the question. I think good or great are subjective. And I think right now, if you look at the job descriptions, data analysts, data scientists, sometimes they're very similar. So I don't think there has to be strict requirements, right? Maybe for some companies you're using Excel, you can solve the business problem. You can be a data analyst. Maybe in some jobs that requires you to, you have to use Python, and then that's a data analyst, the data scientist. So I think good to great data analyst or data scientist depends on 2 things, right? One is whether it has the technical skills that's good enough to solve the problem in this specific industry, right? And I'm not going to say you have to know this and that. Like I mentioned, depends on the role. The second is, like I mentioned in the talk, whether you can think bigger than the task you're assigned, right? Whether you're able to think like a business owner to solve the problem. Now, when you have challenges, whether you are able to put on different hats. Sometimes you need to do some engineering work. Sometimes you need to work like a product manager. So I think someone take extreme ownership and is able to be flexible, wear multiple hats, are the sign of being a great data analyst.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Another question here from Mike. He says, being a data analyst for a business, do you need to be good at business analysis? For example, do you have to know how the whole business works?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think when you're starting in a job, just focusing on maybe a specific skill set, I don't want you to feel you have to overwhelm to know the entire business. Maybe you do need to know the business on a high level. And I think this is a great question because it means you want to take time to learn about the business little by little. I don't think we should separate, oh, I'm a data analyst, I don't need to know the business, right? You're solving a business problem. Sometimes knowing the business make you also realize, oh, maybe I should look at this data, but currently we don't have, then you can propose we should collect that data or we should buy some public data. So I would say on a high level, know the industry your company is in. And second, know more detailed specific in the business of the current department you are working for. And also, don't overwhelm yourself because you're hired as a data analyst. So that's your specialty. And focus on that. And once you're more comfortable with the technical skills and the tools, just learn more about the business and don't just read documents. Have lunch. Now we're remote. Ping them. Hey, can I have a virtual coffee chat with someone who's like a business developer, marketing, sales? Make friends with them. I think that's very important.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. And then we'll take one last very important question from Harpreet. Have you always been awesome, or did it take a lot of work?
Thanks, Harpreet. Yeah, I think. Do you mean this talk or the data science work?
I think it just means you're awesome in general, Daliana. I think it's just a way of complimenting you, which I think you did a great job with the presentation. Where can people go to continue the conversation?
Yeah, I think you can join my newsletter. It's free at www.dalianaliu.com. And also, I launched a podcast called The Data Scientist Show a few weeks ago. Interview data scientists, data analysts, and AI researchers to talk about their career journey, the cool things they're working on, the tools they use, and how to be a great data scientist. So if you're interested, go to YouTube, Spotify, Apple to learn more from other data scientists.
Awesome. All right. Well, Daliana, thank you so much for your time here. I will see you online.